Podcasting from Heroes Media Group with real, relevant, and raw opinions. This is the College Sports Hour with your host, Clint McPherson, and co-host, Greg Dixon.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 18 of the College Sports Hour. I'm your host, Clint, and I'm sitting here today with my partner in crime, Greg. What is up, brother?
Hey, man, it's good to see you. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm excited about college basketball. I know we're going to talk a little college football, but, man, college basketball is thriving right now.
I'm glad to be back, man. Guys, if you're a follower of the show, we didn't just stop. We had to kind of pump the brakes for a second. I had stuff. My business is starting to take off a little bit, the marketing angle. So, again, guys, don't worry about it. We're here. We're going to catch up. We're going to make this episode just as good as any of the other ones we've done. The cool thing is after this, we do have a bonus episode that we're going to release because Greg did, unlike me, have time to record the college basketball segment. So he did cover week 9, which I appreciate you doing that, brother. We will release that basically simultaneously as we release episode 18. So, guys, if you tried to tune in last week and you're wondering where we went, we just had a quick little pause in the recording because I did not have time, but I have time today, so let's get to it, brother. So
man, it's going to be a good one.
Yes, definitely. On today's episode, guys, we'll be starting off by talking about some college football. Again, we're a week behind, but we are going to briefly cover the bowl games that we missed out on from New Year's Eve, New Year's, and the national championship game, which was huge. And I'm sure it took a lot of people by surprise, just like it did myself, to a certain degree. I didn't see it playing out the way it did. And if anybody saw Alabama getting straight demolished like it happened,
they got mollywopped.
Yeah, they got mollywopped, man. I don't think you can. You're telling yourself the truth if you thought that was really actually going to take place. Now, Clemson winning, I have no problem with that, but the way Alabama competed, it just seemed like they didn't even show up for this game, right? I mean, what was your take on it?
Oh man, no, I'm the same way. No, if we remember, I did predict the winner of this game. I did say Clemson was going to win. I just want to throw that out there for everybody. But no, there is no way that I saw Clemson dominating this game the way that they did. I tell you what, man, it was very unindicative of the Alabama teams that we've seen in the past, and Nick Saban getting his teams ready to play. And it just, man, they got outplayed and outcoached in every phase of that game, man.
I mean, Dabo Swinney and Clemson Tigers right now are on a purely different level than anybody else in college right now. You know, we've been talking so long about Saban this, Saban that, but now I think it's just as fair, even though they're in the ACC, to talk about Dabo and the Clemson Tigers year in and year out, because I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon.
No, man, you look at the connection that these guys have between Ross and Trevor Lawrence there, man. Those two guys, freshmen, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, man. The NFL's not going to let them in there for 2 more years, man. So these guys are going to be throwing dimes out there for the next 2 years that we get a chance to witness. Clemson, while they have a senior-heavy defensive line in there, that team is very young. They're not going anywhere. Hey, let's not get carried away. Nick Saban still has more college football championships than Dabo Swinney does. But I got to tell you this. I think Dabo has securely put himself in there as at least the second-best coach in college football right now. Maybe even number 1, even though they are tied at 2 apiece there in this college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I just think Dabo, he went from taking over a team to where they were consistently criticized for Clemsoning, figuring out a way to lose.
All the talent in the world, but not able to put it all together.
Exactly, but man, it just took him. Because I remember him going off one time in one of the, the press conferences and him talking about Clemsoning and like he doesn't buy into that. And it was hard to take what he was saying without a grain of salt because it was like, dude, you can say whatever you want to, but your team did it again this year. And now they have totally, over the last several years, they have totally pushed the Clemsoning angle away.
It's a thing of the past,
and
man.
It's
Nobody
like,
thinks
dude,
about that.
They're expected to win. And the way he goes about it, it's not the militaristic approach like Nick Saban takes, to where sometimes This guy doesn't even look like he's having fun. Dabo looks like he's having fun. Nick Saban looks like he's always mad. They can be up by 28. They can be killing somebody by 41 points. They mess up. He breaks a headset, several headsets, whatever it is. This guy's never happy. And it seems like, dude, you got to take a break and you got to make the game fun for these kids. And I think really in the long run, it's going to benefit Dabo Swinney. And if it hasn't already, he makes the game fun and he cares about his kids. And I'm not saying Nick Saban doesn't.
Sure.
But the angle he takes at showing that is totally different, right? And so I just think at the end of the day, Dabo Swinney has a lot to leverage. And again, man, this is something I didn't really ever think I would say. And it's not that Clemson couldn't do what they're doing. But, when you have, like my team, Florida State, it's somebody that just dominated the ACC for so long. I just didn't see Clemson being the team to just run the ship because they're the FSU now of the ACC.
Right.
And the FSU is like really, really struggling. And so, and it's just one of those things man, it's still hard for me to wrap my mind around because of when I grew up from, I was born in 83. And so all I known was winning. I mean, I know there were several years there in the early 2000s where Florida State struggled. But again,
not like this.
But not like this. And so now you have Clemson that's is just FSU and the ACC, and it's just like it. And I appreciate the dominance that Dabo is actually putting in place for his Clemson team. And I love when a coach, whether he's an underdog, whether he's not good enough to coach this team, he shouldn't have this position. But man, go look at what everybody said about this guy.
Right.
And ask them to say the same thing today. I guarantee they couldn't even that doesn't even hold water.
Yeah, it's a whole different take now. I mean, this guy's brought 2 national championships to Clemson University, man. Brought them back not just to the conversation you mentioned Clemsoning, man, not just into that conversation, but man, being a dominant force and having this dynasty that's being built over there in South Carolina. You mentioned something there about the difference there between Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban and the different styles or anything like that. It used to be where if you wanted to be a surefire NFL first round pick and still are, you can go play at Alabama and you're going to get there and you're going to win maybe 2 national championships along the way, possibly more. But now you have a chance to go play for this guy over there at Clemson, where not only are you going to have the chance to be drafted in the first round, because he's having those guys get drafted in the first round just like Alabama is. Not only are you going to get your chance to win multiple national championships just like at Alabama, but it looks like you're going to have a little more fun down there in South Carolina than you are in Alabama. I mean, talk about some selling points here for your program that doesn't need any selling points right now. You're already getting with the guys that you want. You're already getting the recruiting classes that you want right now. But now, man, you're getting it more and more and more. The thing that I will say is that Alabama continues to have that coaching turnover, that coaching carousel there, and offensive and defensive positions. And the staple there, obviously, is Saban. I believe you're going to start seeing that. Clemson hasn't really experienced that up to this point, but you're going to start seeing that more and more now. People are going to want to get those guys from that Dabo Swinney tree. So we're going to see what happens now as some of those coordinators and some of those position coaches start taking other positions in other places. I'm still a Dabo fan, and, man, I'm still rooting for him and everything like that, but we're going to start seeing how he deals with some of that as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, but it goes to show a lot for Nick Saban, too, because he has been the only consistent thing that they have going, all the coaching turnover, and they experience it again this year. And I always want to say at the end of the year, like, it's going to catch up with them. It's going to catch up with them, but it has yet to do that. Obviously, okay, you can't say it's a total waste going to the national championship almost year in and year out, or getting to the college football playoff, because he's putting his team in positions to win, even when he has less talent. There's times where he's been to the national championship or won it where he didn't have the best quarterback possibly, but he had a good team. And the quarterback didn't do anything to hurt them, so it's like it's fun watching the chess match that Saban plays during the year, but he demands perfection.
Right. And
I know that has to wear on him. Again, it is stressful and all that, but we beat that with the drum. Let's go on and say, look, after we talk some college football in the bowl games, guys, we'll transition to talk week 10 of the college basketball AP Top 25. And for our listeners, if you're just tuning in again, I want to quickly apologize for not having the time to record episode 18 last week. But like I said earlier in this show, we will release a bonus episode where my co-host Greg talks about what went down during week 9, which he did an awesome job. I just didn't have my chance to record my little intro into the Basketball AP Top 25 of week 9. But again, guys, we will take care of this. And I really didn't, like I said, I didn't want to keep you from not talking about football, man, because this football, the UCF LSU game, the Texas Georgia game, the national championship game, they were just crazy. So I really wanted to wait until today so we can discuss it right and discuss it together, brother.
Let's jump into some of these other games, man. I'm excited. Let's jump into it.
All right, man, guys. With that said, let's start off and catch up with some college football. We had 6 New Year's Eve bowl games, 5 New Year's Day bowls, and then the national championship game on January 7th. We're just going to quickly run through some of the bowl games to include the scores. But as we run through some of these games, we'll spend a little bit more time on teams like, I said at the beginning of the episode, the UCF LSU game, the Texas Georgia game, and the national championship game. We'll still give shout outs to these other teams, but really those are the 3 games we're going to focus on during episode 18. We might, to give us some more talking points, we might circle around later on in future episodes to talk about some of these games. But again, guys, we are going to harp on these 3. So let's get started on New Year's Eve, December 31st. We're playing catch up again, guys, but we had Oregon beating Michigan State 7-6 in the Red Box Bowl. This game was something I didn't see coming. I could see Michigan State struggling to score, but Oregon doing what they did throughout the year, I was expecting more from them. They pull out the win, 7-6, but man, this one right here was a defensive battle, no offense.
No doubt, and you're right, man. This is not something that you expect from an Oregon team that's been known throughout their history of having high-powered offenses. But let's be honest with you, this wasn't the same Oregon team that we've been used to seeing, nor is it the same Michigan State team that we've been used to seeing. Both of these teams right here didn't have the seasons that anybody, including themselves, expected to have. So, I mean, they're kind of ending, they both made it to a, New Year's Eve bowl game. Obviously, Oregon comes out with the win, but neither one of them, both of them kind of end a disappointing season for both teams.
Oregon does finish the year off 9-4. Michigan State finishes 7-6. But again, if you're a Michigan State fan, you're hoping your team could turn it around and deliver a more quality season for you. Let's switch to Stanford beating Pittsburgh. Stanford finishes season 9-4. Pittsburgh at 7-7 and 500 season. They beat them. Stanford wins 14-13 in the Hyundai Sun Bowl. Again, this was an ACC Pac-12. This was something that I thought Stanford would come in and win. They did, but Pitt gave them a run for the money. Again, it was a low-scoring affair, nothing too exciting, a 14-13 game, but Stanford comes away with this win, man.
You would definitely expect, or at least I did, expect Stanford to whoop up on Pitt a little bit more than what they did, considering the fact that Pitt probably, just by virtue of them winning the Coastal Division of the ACC, is the only reason they found themselves in this position. Probably didn't really have any business being there. But hey, man, they put up a really good fight, and I thought they represented the ACC pretty well in this game.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, again, we've talked about it before in previous episodes. Pittsburgh's not a team that you're just going to go push over. Right. But again, they have a 7-7 year. Finish at 500, which is kind of not great. But at the same time, they could have beat anybody on their schedule this year. They had the team. It was a Jekyll and Hyde type year. But at the end of the day, Stanford pulls this one out. Kudos to Stanford. Let's go over to Cincinnati. Let's go over to the Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman. Cincinnati finishes with a great year. They beat Virginia Tech 35-31. But again, Virginia Tech started off hot, beating Florida State in the opening. Their quarterback goes down. They didn't have the type of year they thought they were originally. They finished at 6-7. Virginia Tech 6-7, man. I still can't wrap my mind around this whole. We're going to a bowl game. We're 500. We lose. We have a losing record. I don't think it's anything to brag about at the end of the day. But Cincinnati, man, has a great year, finishing 11-2. They get a solid win against the ACC opponent, and they win 35-31.
Virginia Tech, man, was just decimated by injuries this year, and it happened. You mentioned it with their quarterback going down, but it happened all over the field on them. And I know injuries are part of the game, and I know that that's something that you have to work a way to overcome. I get that, I understand that. I'm with you on the 6-7. The 6-6 record going to the bowl game and ended up coming out 6-7. You're sub 500 there. But I tell you what, man, let's give a shout out to Cincinnati, man. You mentioned them having a great season, 11-2 for them, man. They really put some good things together, man. They got their program's headed in the right direction, and so it's good to see that there for the Cincinnati Bearcats.
No, without a doubt. So let's go on to the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, where Oklahoma State beats number 23 Missouri. So Oklahoma State, a team that had some good wins this year, finished 7-6 on the season.
Yep.
They beat Missouri 38-33, where Missouri finishes the year 8-5. But man, this is something where you thought Mock was actually going to light the scoreboard up. He did go out in style to a certain degree. He didn't win, but man, Oklahoma State again delivers. It gets a good quality win, and it gets a decent SEC opponent.
You know, if you're not playing against these Oklahoma State teams, these Oklahomas, these Texas teams all the time, and your defense isn't up to par, man, you're gonna have a tough time beating teams like this in a shootout. And 38-33, while it may not be the high scoring shootouts that we've heard of in the past, it was enough for them to, you score enough points on a Missouri team, you're gonna be able to get the win. And Oklahoma State was able to do that.
Oh, without a doubt. Let's switch over and talk about the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, guys. NC State fans. Man, what happened? Like Texas A&M, number 19 Texas A&M finishes the season 9-4. NC State finishes 9-4, but Texas A&M comes in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl and they put it to the Wolfpack. They win 52-13. I mean, at the beginning of the game, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting, but that second half, it was all Texas A&M, and NC State just could not do anything. They didn't have an answer. And Texas A&M just was scoring at will towards the end of that game.
It was another indication that NC State was who we thought they were, going into the season, early in the season, preseason, even midway through the season. You saw State kind of creeping up there through the ranks in the top 25, but having not played anybody. And then they started to play some teams that are a little bit better competition, and it began to fold. And then they get into this game right here against a number 19 Texas A&M team that is coached by Jimbo Fisher, who has a little bit of history there with the Wolfpack, knows a little bit about them, and really put the hurt on them, man. 52-13. Yeah, they slapped them all over the place.
Yeah, man, and like we talked about before, when you give Jimbo Fisher, it's almost like one of those Nick Saban moments. If you give him a long time to game plan, he's game.
Exactly.
And you got to be in your A's and Q's, and they were not, right? And so NC State just ran to the woodshed. Texas A&M, the Aggies, the 12th man, it was alive, and they just put NC State in a headlock and just, wet willied them, whatever you want to call it. They beat the brakes off of them, man. So
gave them the atomic wedgie is what they did, man.
No, exactly. So Texas A&M wins that game 52-13. Not the way the NC State Wolfpack wanted to end their season, but again, they do finish at a respectable 9-4.
Yep.
Let's talk about number 22 Northwestern, a team we talked about a lot this year and did a lot of great things. They beat number 17 Utah, which is another team I was high on this year. They beat them 31-20 in the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. But at the end of the day, man, Northwestern completely took a hold of this game in the second half and did what they needed to do to win this game and separate themselves from Utah.
Listen, man, Northwestern was a team that surprised a lot of people, myself included. I sure enough didn't see them having the kind of season that they did. I think this is great for their program. I think this is great for them. And to be able to kind of score this bowl win right here, when I think people were even coming out of the Ohio State game several weeks ago, sitting and saying, okay, this is the Northwestern team that we expected. They're going to get up there and they're going to get spanked by Ohio State. But then they come out and they represent well against this Utah team and getting a big win for them.
Yeah, without a doubt. They fall behind early, but then they score in bunches towards the end, which was very impressive. And Northwestern finds a way to win again. Let's move on to New Year's, man. January 1st, we had some exciting games and some records were broke. So let's talk about Iowa, right? They finished off 9-4. They beat another team we talked about all year, which we thought was overrated, Mississippi State.
Up and down.
Black and yellow, whatever. But it's like they finished 8-5, but Iowa beats them 27-22 in the Outback Bowl. The ACC, again, some of these teams, if it's not Alabama, if it's not Georgia, some of these teams are just so inconsistent and just, to me, they're so overrated to a certain degree. And when I look at it, when Mississippi State jumps into the rankings, I laugh, and then they go out and do something like this against not a bad Iowa team, but at the end of the day, a lot of people, you would expect the playmakers that Mississippi State has on the side of the ball or on their sideline would actually get the job done, but they just didn't deliver.
Look, man, I think that sometimes we can get caught up in the conference debate about which conference is better and who has the best talent and different things like that. Listen, the SEC is, usually year in and year out has some great competition that's in there. But I think it's very much at the high end. Those top tier teams, they're getting the best quality of people that are playing in there, and that's why those teams have these combatants and they're able to go in there. But then you get teams like you mentioned, Mississippi State or maybe a Missouri or something like that. They're not top to bottom, some of these high talented teams or anything along those lines. And so you get this in and out of the top 25 there. And this Iowa team, man, they aren't you're talking about some big boys in there, some strong boys that are down there in that line, man. They're gonna wear on you as much as they possibly can, make you carry their weight around. And Iowa was able to do that in this game.
No, I agree. Let's talk about the Citrus Bowl, man. This is a game that I didn't think would turn out the way it did. I did not see Kentucky actually getting this one, and then finish with an incredible record at 10-3. They beat Penn State 27-24 impressively. It wasn't that the defense did what they had to do. The offense really was surprising to me in doing what they had to do to score enough points to beat a good Penn State team. Not a great Penn State team, not an elite Penn State team, but a good Penn State team, right? And so Kentucky, man, kudos and congratulations to them for finishing 10-3 on the season. Penn State finishes 9-4, but man, what Stoops has done at Kentucky, I know it's taken a while, and it would have took anybody a while at Kentucky, but just what he's done, man, you got to admire what this guy has done. And again, they might not have the offense, but they have the defense.
Right. I mean, they came in there, man. Not only do they have the defense, man, but they've had the running game all year long, man. They put the ball in Snell's hands, and he just ran all over the place in just about every game that they played in this year. I tell you what, man, I'm extremely impressed with Kentucky and how they have played this year. I think this is something big that they can hang their hats on, that they can build that program on, and it might be something that you're looking at as a team in the SEC to be contended with over the next several years, man. Especially if they can kind of build on what's happening this year and they can start getting some of the recruits and some of the top tier players in the country to come in and make a little visit to Kentucky and not being just a basketball school.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, man. You do have teams like this from time to time, like a Wake Forest for the ACC that would rear their heads and have a decent year. Duke having great years, and it just hopefully this Kentucky team can stay competitive and continue to do stuff like this, man. Because if you consistently see a Kentucky team at 10-3, they're eventually going to get to where they need to be really competitive. Year in and year out. But exactly. Like I said, man, kudos to them for actually having a very good year when it wasn't expected.
No doubt.
Let's talk about a game that ended a streak, right? So we had number 11 LSU taking on number 8 UCF. And number 11 LSU obviously wins this and beats them 40-32 in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. But let's talk about this game a little bit because UCF streak heading into the game, it is now broken, obviously. I mean, UCF comes out of the gate strong in this one and punched LSU in the mouth early. But what Joe Burrow came in and did afterwards, where he shook off a vicious early hit to throw, he throws for 394 yards, man. And 4 touchdowns. So this kid went off on him after he got injured or came out of the game for a little while, and it helps LSU ultimately, end number 7 Central Florida's 25-game winning streak with this victory. What Central Florida did over the past 2 years has been incredible. I know it has been against so-called lesser opponents, right? But at the end of the day,
they still won.
Yeah, they still won. And then you look at how close they were to being able to proclaim, themselves national championships 2 years in a row.
Right.
It was right there in their grasp. So they finished this year 12-1, which is great, man. And at the end of the day, UCF could have easily won this game. Everybody wants to say the SEC was too good for them. They showed last year they beat Auburn, right?
Right.
And so they had LSU on the ropes early. I just think that injury and Mac not being able to, the quarterback, Mac Jr., not really being able to do anything, and coming away with 97 yards, 11 for 30, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. When you don't have what they had during the year, and I know Mac's good enough to do what he does from time to time, but he's just not as consistent as QB1 was, brother. And so I really think they caught up with him in this game.
Yeah, man. Look, there's a reason that Mac was the backup. If he was the best quarterback on the team, he'd have played. But he wasn't. He was in there because the starting quarterback got injured. If he's playing in this game, I do believe there's probably a different ending to this story right here. If you'd have told me that Joe Burrow was going to be the star of this game, I'd have called you nuts because he hadn't been a star of any game all season long. But all of a sudden, this joker comes out thinking he's Joe Montana or Tom Brady or somebody like that. 394 yards and 4 touchdowns in this game. Listen, UCF's defense might not have been the best in the country or the best in the league or anything like that, but I certainly didn't see them giving up this amount of yardage and this many touchdowns. Dude, blows my mind they were able to do this. However, we did pick LSU. I think both of us picked LSU to win this game. I didn't see it going down like this. I think I texted you when this game started getting going, and I was like, oh my gosh, UCF is about to win this game as they jumped out to that huge lead. Yeah. Because I didn't see Burrow coming back and doing this. There's just no way that I saw that. So he showed me something in this game, being able to take that punch to the mouth and being able to come back and throw for the and have the game that he had, man, because he was throwing some really, really good passes.
He got his bell rung, right? And so it was almost like the Rocky situation. You get back up, and then he came in and did what he did. Was very surprising to me. I thought that UCF would have been able to, after they jumped out to that early lead, even though this game ends 40-32, it doesn't show you how dominant LSU was in this game, right?
Agreed.
So their total yards, they had 555, right? And then Central Florida only 250. They couldn't do anything. 97 yards in the air, 81 yards on the ground. It was just, for McCray. So it was one of those things that they just couldn't really get it going. And even though they both shared the same amount of turnovers, the time of possession for LSU.
That's it right there.
Ridiculous. 44 minutes, almost 45 minutes. So you had the ball 3/4 of the game. And UCF couldn't, and the only reason they were able to, they capitalized off turnovers really at the beginning. Yeah. It was like turnover, okay, we score a touchdown. So it was one of those things when you have the ball for 3/4 of the game, you're gonna win. You're just gonna win. And so, I mean, it ended up that way. And LSU impressive. They dominated this game, 32 first downs to 17 first downs. I mean, again, the score is a little more, a lot closer than the actual game was. But UCF came out throwing punches. Like our UCF came out throwing punches like we thought they would. Mm-hmm. But they just could not consistently land them throughout the game to really come away with this win.
Right. I agree, man. And, hats off to LSU for being able to not letting their feelings get hurt and getting butt hurt about not being playing a better opponent or a quality opponent that they thought probably they should have, and getting stuck with UCF, but hanging in there and being able to win that game.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's go over to another game we'll talk about quickly. Number 6, Ohio State finishes season 13-1. They go against number 9, Washington, that finishes season 10-4. But Ohio State wins this 28-23. This was a lot closer than I saw coming because, Browning's been struggling all year. This was in the Rose Bowl. Is presented by Northwestern Mutual. But this game, Ohio State pulling this game off, sends Urban Meyer out on a good note, or as good as possible. Obviously, I'm sure he would want to, score a lot more points or have, it was a lot closer than, again, I anticipated. But at the end of the day, Ohio State pulls it out.
Able to get the win, and that's what you're looking for. Dwayne Haskins, he comes out of there, ends his college career on a high note with a win as well into the Rose Bowl. First time Urban Meyer ever coached in the Rose Bowl and was able to get a win. So hats off to him, and hope he enjoys retirement for as long or little time as it may be.
No, I agree. It's like, he's coming back next week. Watch out, guys. So let's switch over to the All-State Sugar Bowl, guys. Number 15, Texas. They beat. Now, I want to repeat that. They beat.
Come on.
Number 5, Georgia. So
where the Georgia fans at? Where the Georgia fans
at? This is a Georgia team that thought they got slided, right? So it's another argument. They were not ready for this game because they didn't have anything to play for. They all their good players sat out. On and on and on they just didn't have anything to play for. They were so defeated that they didn't get in the four. It's like, again, they had 2 chances earlier in the year. They lose to LSU. I mean, not just lose. They got dominated by LSU. Yep. They gave the game away against Alabama. I got it. You might have a little argument there if you didn't lose against LSU.
You gave it away. You gave it away.
Yeah, but if they didn't lose to LSU, they might have had an argument to slide in there.
I'm with you.
Short, right? And so in this game, they come out and start and play the way they did, and they got it going late, man.
Right.
But the 2 turnovers were very costly. and the way Texas just completely, from the beginning to the end, dominated the game. I got it. Everybody's like, well, they only beat us 28-21. You really got some garbage stuff towards the end, right?
Yeah, that final score right there is not indicative of how this game was going, man, because at no point in time did you ever really feel like Texas was out of control of this game.
Exactly. I mean, you have Sam Ehlinger. He runs for 3 touchdowns. The Texas defense largely held Georgia's offense in check all afternoon, and
Right.
the Longhorns earned their first 10-win season. And I don't know if you saw the interview at the end or what the little "we're back" moment by Sam Ehlinger, but come on, brother.
Sam.
I know, too early,
on,
man.
Sam.
You have won 10-win season since 2009, and you're back after losing 4 games. I don't know, brother. You did beat a good team, in the Georgia Bulldogs, but again, how good were they when this game didn't matter?
They should have been in the Final Four.
They should have been there, right? And this game didn't matter. Why should we win this? Why should we win this, right? Kirby Smart, he doesn't have a job. He's not the head coach. I guess losing this game doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you lose against the number 15 ranked team in the nation.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't like Texas was just okie dokie and people all year, and this was like a 14-1 team, you were facing off against, or a 13-1 team, whatever it is. Yeah, this team's already lost 4 games on the year. But this shows you how good a Texas team can be.
Oh, absolutely.
They go out and
they were ready to play.
They go out and handle Georgia, man. Like I said, this was a dominated game, even though at the end of the day it's 28-21. Texas dominates.
I agree.
All right, man. Let's move on to the game.
Yep.
The game that you called, obviously. I went the other way.
Sure you did.
But number 2 Clemson, they beat number 1 Alabama 44-16. I say again, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 44-34. It was 44-16. This is a dominating win. I mean, it was 14-13 at one time.
Yep.
In the first quarter, and we're like, man, this is going to be a shootout. This is going to be a good game.
Every time they touched the ball, somebody was scoring a touchdown.
Exactly. And after that, it was all she wrote, man. Clemson dominated. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was on fire. We had Justin Ross just every time he caught the ball, it was a one-handed catch. It was a bobbling.
Ridiculous catches.
It was top 10 highlights every time he touched the ball. Yep. And so this was just very unexpected for me, because when you look at the stats, Alabama was gaining yards.
Oh yeah,
they were driving, they were doing things, they were moving the ball. Right. They just were missing field goals. They were faking. They were pulling Georgia. Well, let me say that Georgia was pulling the Alabamas, because I know Kirby Smart took a lot of that from the Nick Saban playbook. But man, when you fake a field goal and you run right up the middle, I don't know if that's probably the worst fake I've ever seen, right?
But you're running the fake against not a field goal defense. I mean, you're running against a normal set defense that is waiting for the field goal, waiting for the fake right there. They knew the play that was coming.
Exactly. And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh man, they just did a Georgia. I was like, they just pulled a Georgia play. Like, what's going on right now? Nick Saban, that's the best you could come up with. I know you didn't have trust in your boy.
Yep.
But why didn't you just put Tua? Why didn't you put Jalen Hurts? Why didn't you set your team up for a better play than that? When you do something that dumb, you deserve to get beat 44-16. I
tell you what, I mean, you're exactly right. When you sit there, I mean, the lack of confidence in the kicker really began to set this thing up for failure, right there from the get-go, right there from the beginning. Because from that point on, man, they never put, anytime it was fourth down, it was, they're not kicking it. They're going to go for it. And you're right, man, Alabama would move the ball up and down the field, but they would get towards the red zone. They would get into that area, and they couldn't score any points. And so as they weren't able to get any, they weren't even able to put 3 points on the scoreboard there. It put them in a deeper and deeper hole. But I tell you what, man, I can't say enough for the freshman tandem of Lawrence and Ross that were there, man, for Clemson. Trevor Lawrence coming in there, the book on him was that he hasn't played anybody, hasn't really played a whole lot of quality competition. His best game was against Notre Dame, and everybody was sitting there saying now Notre Dame shouldn't have been in there because of the way they performed against Clemson. He didn't even play in the Syracuse game because he got knocked out of that when he was hurt. Didn't start the year because Kelly Bryant did. So who has he really played? So he's gonna get the bright lights are gonna be there. It's gonna be too much for him. And this joker right here had ice in his veins.
Without
man, Man, he stood in the pocket, man. He was making unbelievable throws. Now, granted, he threw some of those up there, and Ross and a couple other guys just went up there and snatched it out of the air. But that's what you got to do as a championship team, man, and it was unbelievable to watch.
I mean, he got the ball to the playmakers.
Yep.
He made the right decisions throughout the game. He was getting hit, but he would bounce right off of them. It was like a human pinball machine. Like, typically when Alabama hits quarterbacks, they go down. This guy was just going to the left and right. You know, he was staying on his feet. He was in the moment. He was cool, calm, and collective. And when you talk about a kid that started for his high school team at the age of 14,
right.
At the age of 14, you know this kid is going to be good. And and he showed his worth. Everybody I talked to leading to the game, right? I thought this was true. I thought we would have saw some freshman moments from him, but you really didn't see that. And so it was one of those things where I'm like, everybody I talked to was like, he's a freshman. I'm like, well, Tua made this throw last year, and they're like, that was just one play. And I'm like, but look, freshman, Jameis Winston, he wasn't a redshirt freshman, or he was a redshirt freshman. He wasn't a true freshman. But you have people that can come in this day and age. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman. These kids are groomed differently. They're prepared differently. They're ready. And this kid showed exactly, like when they interviewed him in the game, they're like, how many more of these? He's like, 3 more. And I'm like, dude, you're not coming back 4 years. I was like, you'd be ridiculous. I mean, he would go down in history as, if he wins all 4 championships, I mean, he would go down in history as probably the best ever. But you got to look at it, dude. That's not a good decision. You win 1, you win 2. When you're eligible to leave. You know, don't risk that last year to get hurt. Do not.
Hey, look, here's the thing. There's a really, really good chance that we're gonna see Trevor Lawrence versus Tua Tagovailoa again next year.
Without a doubt.
Look, we haven't talked a lot about him in this game because he didn't play up to his normal standards.
Right.
But Tagovailoa, man, he was still, he's still one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Gonna be the number one pick when he comes out in the draft, not this year but next year. So we get the chance to watch these guys play. But the greatest comment I saw, man, you get different things online on Twitter and stuff like that. The greatest thing that I saw was, I can't wait for 2020 when Bill Belichick intentionally goes 0-16 so he can draft Trevor Lawrence. It was awesome when I read it, man. But anyways, man, hats off to Clemson, man, on a great win and a great season.
Yeah, man, kudos, hats off, man. Clemson, it's just impressive to see these guys, both of these teams, you know.
Yeah.
It's just impressive to see the quality they bring to the game. They're getting all the good players. It's not even it's like day and night when you look at the teams that they're going up against, and they come prepared.
Sure.
Like Clemson might struggle one game a year, a couple games a year, like they did against Syracuse or Pittsburgh, from time to time. But man, when they get to this playoff, you can never underestimate Dabo Swinney and his coaching staff. I mean, they have it figured out. They have the formula of success, and it's something that other people need to emulate. And if they don't, they're going to be left behind for years to come.
I read something, and I don't know if it's true. So you take it with a grain of salt. I just read it. I don't believe it was like a legit article or anything. It could have been.
Google.
I just don't remember. It could have. Yeah, somewhere on Google. I don't know. But I read something that Dabo had his coaching staff and his players in that big break they had from the ACC championship up until the college football playoff. That they spent that time. They spent 4 weeks preparing for Alabama and 1 week preparing for Notre Dame. I don't know if that's true or not. But I think that shows a little bit of the mentality. Maybe if it is, if it's not, I don't really know. But it just kind of puts things into perspective there. That he knew that if he was going to win a national championship, he was going through Alabama.
Oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure the preparation for Alabama probably started at the beginning of the year, right? Implementing little things here and there because they just knew if when you're at the level they are, they just expect to be there. And I got it. They could have got beat by Syracuse and ruined that idea, or somebody else and ruined that. But you would be dumb if you weren't in his position and not start game planning, implement little things in here for the Alabama game, because you're just going to be just that more ahead of anybody else at that point. And I would agree, man. Notre Dame, why spend a lot of time? I mean, don't get me wrong. They had a great year.
Yeah.
Ian Book took over. Yep. He should have been the quarterback.
Yep.
They did great. But at the end of the day, they just, the playmakers, the offensive and defensive lines, and the skills players are just not at the level of an Alabama. They're not at the level of a Georgia. They're not at the level of a Clemson. It's just they don't have that yet.
Agreed.
And it's like, and again, until you can prove that in a championship game, I just don't know if they deserve to be there ever again.
I'm with you. Let's roll.
But because they are Notre Dame, they will.
They will.
But all right, guys. As we wrap that up, that's it for college football. The only thing I want to talk about real quick is the Associated Press Top 25 that ends it out. Clemson officially is number 1. They receive all the votes. Obviously, you got Alabama coming at 2. Nothing really stood out at me here. UCF falls to 11.
Yep.
And you look at it, Notre Dame finishes 5th. But it looks like you got Ohio State finishing 3rd. And man, Florida 7th, tied with Georgia. So it's one of those things that this is interesting because it's going to be interesting to see what out of the top 25 currently, who's in the top 25 going into the next season. And I'm impressed with this Army team, man. Finishing the year at 19, 11-2. Incredible season. You have Fresno State in there finishing 12-2. So you had some of these teams, Utah State, Cincinnati. You have a lot of these lower-level teams doing great, man. Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see for years to come what happens. And again, heading into next year, what this is going to be. We'll compare both of them heading into next year. But it's going to be interesting to see what this brings.
I got one question on the top 25, and then we're going to roll into basketball. How in the world does Texas beat Georgia in a bowl game and still is ranked lower than them in the final in the final rankings? How is that even possible?
Hey man, doesn't even make sense. But again, when I can kind of see it, they had a huge leap, right? 15-5. And so, but I still don't buy it.
Whatever, you lost.
I still don't buy it. Yeah, right.
You can't be ranked ahead of the team that beat you in the final bowl game of the season. You can't be. That's just it's ludicrous.
I would agree, man. But at the end of the day, they did it.
Yeah, whatever.
But with that said, let's transition to some college basketball. Week 10. Let's hit this Week 10 recap and then talk about the Week 11 preview. We start off with number 8 Texas Tech defeating number 23 Oklahoma 66-59.
Man, I tell you what, man, there is a lot of conversation happening around Texas Tech's Jarrett Culver, man. A lot of people got a lot of high things to say about him. He had 23 points and 13 rebounds in this game. He scored 7 straight to break a tie late in the second half to help Texas Tech pull away with the win over Oklahoma. Oklahoma's Christian James scored 14 points in this game to help lead Oklahoma, but they just didn't have enough to be able to overcome this really, really good Texas Tech team.
Yeah, man, when you look at it, when they both fight like crazy, and it was just one of those things where Oklahoma, it's I love seeing Oklahoma play some basketball. From who was it they had last year, and he's in the NBA now. But they have some good players, and there's some ballers over there, the Sooners. Right. I mean, they can play some basketball, right? And no doubt. When you're looking at Texas Tech, which their only loss was to who?
Could that be Duke?
That could be Duke. And so their only loss was good. And so they're playing some quality opponents now in their own conference. I don't know if you could call that quality, but at the end of the day, they're playing ranked teams and winning. Outside of Duke. There's not many teams that are going to beat Duke on the year. But at the end of the day, Texas Tech gets a good win, man. And so this is a quality win that will continue to help solidify them being in the top 10.
Yes, sir.
Let's transition to North Carolina and NC State. NC State, one of those surprise teams for me. I knew a lot of people didn't want to give them love at the beginning of the year, but this team is playing some ball. But they lose a close one to their in-state rival, 90-82. North Carolina gets this. This is a big rivalry game, but man, UNC with them jumping out to that quick 12-0 lead, that kind of put NC State behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, man. So, you expect emotions to be running high in this game. You expect everybody to get up to be able to play in this game, especially on both sides, man. NC State crowd was rocking in that place, but they got quieted down really, really quick as UNC jumped out to that lead. But I tell you what, NC State really fought back in this game, and they would continue to fight back throughout this game, and they would get really, really close. They would tie it up, but they just didn't have enough to get over the hump there. Luke May scored 21 points for UNC. Kenny Williams had 15 points and 10 rebounds. Big deal for the Tar Heels as they go 6 for 6 at the free throw line in the final 32 seconds. Man, huge deal for them, and they were able to overcome a really, really good. I mean, I'm telling you, this Wolfpack team is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously forcing 23 turnovers, right? I mean,
yep.
That's incredible. It goes to show that the Tar Heels are still talented. They can turn the ball over that many times and still pull the win out. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. So
let's move on to this upset. South Carolina is sitting at 7-6 or 6-7 before this game. They defeat number 14 Mississippi State, which we'll talk about here in a second. 87-82, man.
Yeah, man, this is not a good loss for a Mississippi State team, man. South Carolina coming into this game, they had some momentum coming in this game as that they had kind of created after beating Florida on Saturday, on the previous Saturday before this game right here. But Mike Kotzer had 25 points and 9 rebounds to lead South Carolina. They were able to win despite allowing the Bulldogs to shoot 44% from three-point range. Listen to me. If I'm shooting 44% from three-point range, I'm not shooting any other shot on the court. If you can knock it down at a 44% rate, man, it's crazy. A.J. Lawson, the Gamecocks' leading scorer for the season, had just 5 points. All right, so your leading scorer on the season, he's not playing well. And the other team scoring 44% from the three-point line, and you're still able to come away with a win. Man, Mississippi State did not play good in this game at all.
I mean, that huge, but A.J. Lawson's huge dunk with 6 seconds left, man, that wrapped it up, right? And so this is a big win for South Carolina, even though they're sitting at 7-7. But Mississippi State, this is not a good look, right?
And it's going to get worse.
Exactly. So let's transition to Baylor.
Okay.
Another team pulling off an upset against the number 20 ranked Iowa State. They beat them 73-70. I mean, this game right here, Baylor impressed me. They moved to 9-5, and this is a big win for them.
This right here, you would expect Iowa State to maybe have a little bit of a hangover coming off of a big win against, at the time, number 5 Kansas. But you certainly expect them to be able to put away a Baylor team, and they weren't able to do that. Makai Mason scores 25 points, including 5 free throws in the last 38 seconds to help steal a win for Baylor. I'm telling you what, guys, listen, these games right here, you got to be able to hit free throws. If you're going to be able to win, at this level, you got to be able to knock down free throws. Some teams can do that, some teams can't. Makai Mason was the guy that you wanted at the free throw line, knocking him down for Baylor as he helped seal the win for his team.
Yeah, and coming into this game, I thought Iowa State was just gonna do work, right? Especially after coming off that Kansas win, and so they show up and lose. I mean, it's a close game, but it's just a loss that I didn't see coming. And
sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is not a good look for Iowa State, but Baylor, this is a good look, right? So
yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a good win for their program as they continue to move forward.
Definitely. So let's go to another team, Villanova, which is having a pretty decent year. They're sitting at 12-4. They defeat number 24 St. John's, which is having an even better year at 14-2. They beat them 76-71. So this is a good quality win because St. John's started the year hot and they continue to roll. They've lost 2 recent games, but again, they're a good team, and this is a good quality win for Villanova.
Yeah, man, St. John's is a really good shooting team, and when they're on, man, you're gonna have a very hard time beating this team. But they have tendencies to go cold at certain times, and that's what happened in this game, specifically in the second half. They were up by 13 in the first half. They got up by 11 in the second half, and then they just go cold from 3. Phil Booth for Villanova has 23 points, none bigger than the late three-pointer to pull Nova ahead for good. Eric Pascal had 25 points, man. So it was a big win for this Nova team, who's still searching for its identity, trying to put a run of wins together here and put themselves back into contention to be able to defend that national championship title.
Oh, without a doubt. I think, again, they'll continue to build this momentum. They'll jump in the top 25 here soon as long as they continue to win. And I think it's just a matter of time, again, right? Just to get comfortable with each other, to learn how to play with each other, because this is a completely different team than what they had last year. It's not the same squad that took them all the way. They had a lot of turnover. So at the end of the day, Villanova is going to be, like I said, they're going to be tournament bound. But at the end of the day, are they going to be able to beat a Kansas? Are they going to be able to beat a Michigan and compete with those teams that are just consistently week in and week out good?
It's all about getting hot at the right time, and Nova's still got time to turn it around, man, but they got to start finding out the pieces of the puzzle at this point.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the season's still a long season, but we are in January, and March is getting closer.
It is indeed.
So let's talk about Kansas. After coming off that Iowa State loss, they defeat a ranked opponent in TCU. TCU comes in the game at number 25, Kansas at 7. They beat TCU 77-68, and Dedrick Lawson leads the way with 31 points and 14 rebounds. Huge game for him.
Yep. I tell you what, man, this Dedrick Lawson kid is really, really good. If you're not paying attention to him, you really need to start watching this kid play because he's doing it. He's doing it everywhere. This guy's a high energy guy playing with a lot of confidence right now. But this right here is a different Kansas team now too, because now they're trying to find out who they are and how to play without their star player Udoka Azubuike. I mispronounce his name pretty much every time we say it. This might be the last time that I say it. But he had his season-ending injury last week, and now he's out for the rest of the season. So they're trying to figure out who they are. And so Tedrick Lawson stepping up and filling the void there. LeGerald Vick still helping out as well, 12 points and 4 assists. They have a freshman on the team now, and I'm not even going to try to I'm trying to pronounce his name, but I'm about to butcher the mess out of this thing right here, all right? Ochai Agbaji. That's not how you say it or anything like that. That was a terrible pronunciation. But he's playing his first game of the season. He's I made Clint over there laugh. But he played in his first game of the season as he relinquishes his redshirt ability following the injury to Azubuike. And he has 7 points and 4 rebounds. They're getting this guy into the flow of it, trying to help him learn the position. And so he's got a good future ahead of him too. But we'll see what this freshman can do. TCU, they're dropping a tough one here. They go 0-7 all time at Kansas's home arena, but kind of a big deal for this game right here. We need to make sure that we pay attention to. I want to make sure it needs to be a little star for this game. Jalen Fisher who leads the Big 12 in 3-point percentage. He sat this game due to a knee injury, so that's going to be difficult for TCU to overcome while this guy's sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, when you turn the ball over 20 times, right, and then Kansas at the end of the game makes their free throws, it's gonna be hard to pull this game off. But again, Kansas gets a big win after an surprisingly lost to me. Like when I look at that Iowa State game, I don't think Kansas is going to lose, but Iowa State's actually pretty decent this year.
Yeah. Hey, before we move on to another game, I want you to try to pronounce the freshman's name.
Nah, man, that's all you.
Let's see you pronounce his name.
When I
see
it.
Come on, let's see you pronounce it.
Hey, I got it, man. It's perfect. You made me laugh for the week right there. That was the best laugh I can get in. Let's move on to Ole Miss. They pulled off a big one. They beat number 11 Auburn 82-67. And so this game right here, Ole Miss is 12-2. Auburn's 11-3, and Ole Miss is just not getting any love for the rankings. But man, you never know what's going to happen. You know what's next for this team.
I tell you what, this is a big win for a program. Let's put this in perspective because I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to Ole Miss. Oftentimes I would probably forget they got a basketball program over there. But this is a program that lost 20 games last season and was projected to finish in the bottom half of their conference. Hello, they're sitting at 12-2 right now. Coming into this week, Terrence Davis for Ole Miss had 27 points and 12 rebounds. Freshman KJ Buffin had 16 points. Devontae Shuler, he has 14 points. Man, I tell you, this is a crazy thing against a really, really good Auburn team, man. I watched them play up close when they played Duke several weeks ago. Don't discount this or anything like that, but Auburn's still a really tough team that's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, well, Bryce Brown, man, is one of those games. He had 23 points, but he takes 24 shots. Yep. 19 of those shots are threes. I mean, what? So that was one of those I look at it, I'm like, man, ultimately live by the three and die by the three, and that's exactly the approach they took in this game, and they actually died, right? So
no doubt, and they made just 8 baskets inside the 3-point line. So I mean, man, you're not setting yourself up for victory there if you're not knocking them down.
It's a good Auburn team though, but again, like when you can't hit shots from the 3-point line, when you're shooting, that's all you shoot basically.
Yep.
You're gonna struggle. Let's move on to Rutgers. Huge win for Rutgers, and I know it's disappointing for the Buckeye fans losing this game, 64-61. But Ohio State's ranked 16 coming into this game, and Rutgers beats them, man. And so at the end of the day, like I said, not a good look for this Ohio State Buckeyes team.
First win for Rutgers against a ranked Big Ten opponent since January 2015, man. And Rutgers they didn't do this thing without any little adversity in there as well. They blow a 10-point second half lead. They fall behind by 3, but then they come back and score the final 6 points of the game to be able to win this game right here. Montez Mathis, he hits 2 contested layups, and then Geo Baker nails a jumper with 10.3 seconds left to play in the game to seal the win for Rutgers.
Awesome, man. That's Rutgers comes through. Ohio State, just fell a little short in this game. But it was definitely, this Rutgers is 8-6. And then Ohio State's not a pushover. They've had some quality wins this year. They're looking good, but Rutgers when you're winning by 10. And then you fall behind by 3 and then score the final 6 points. That's pretty good.
No doubt.
And facing adversity, like you said, and then figuring out how to face that adversity but still pull away the win, that was impressive. Let's move on to Temple, man. Defeating number 17 Houston, 73-69. This is a very close game, and that's Houston's first loss, right, of the season.
It is their first loss of the season. Quentin Rose for Temple has 22 points. They get a huge defensive play in there by Ernest Flakpui. Golly, Flakpui. Flakpui, whatever his name is, took a huge charge there from Corey Davis Jr. in the final second of play, wiping out the tying basket. Man, I tell you, so you got to admit there's a little bit of controversy going into this, but the referees they go to the TV screen. Yeah, exactly. They're in the final bit. They go to the TV screen. They go for the replay to make sure they got the call right. They did make the call right, man, and the referees got out of Dodge, man. Man, but big win there for Temple, knocking off Houston for giving them their first loss.
Yeah, man. How nervous are you when it goes to replay in basketball, right? it's you expect it in football. It happens all the time, but when you just got to be nervous when they go to the monitors and review in basketball. You just never know.
Where's it going to be? Where's it going to be?
Exactly. There's no I don't even know if there's really any guidelines or rules when it comes to okay, if his foot's here or what the ball's here. It's it is what it is, right? And so they wipe out the time basket, and that would have been a huge play. But at the end of the day, Temple gets a big win for that program.
True story.
Maryland defeating number 22 Indiana 78-75. This is a big win for that Maryland team that moves to 14-3. But Indiana, after starting off a little hotter than they have been, they moved to 12-4. But this is an Indiana team that is a good team. But Maryland is starting to show they have some staying power, man.
Well, I mean, they're a team that's also learned how to win, even though they're having to come from behind. It's the third time during their 5-game win streak they've had to come back from a halftime deficit. Bruno Fernando, he scores 25 points and 13 rebounds. Anthony Kwan Jr., he gets 24 points in this game. Man, so it's a big deal for them. Indiana, you kind of look at some of the stat lines there, thinking they probably come away with a win. They go 16 for 16 from the free throw line. They only commit 7 turnovers, but they allow Maryland to get 18 offensive rebounds. That's 18 extra chances to score points there. You got to be able to defend the glass a little bit better than that, boys.
Yeah, that ultimately led to the loss. When you look at the stats, it's 18 offensive rebounds. When you're lights out from the free throw line and you're committing a very low 7 turnovers in the game, those offensive rebounds lost you the game. You got to get defensive rebounds because you cannot give the other team second chance points. And obviously Maryland capitalized and took advantage of that. Let's get to a huge game for both of us. I thought Florida State had this, my man. Duke wins. Number 1 Duke defeats my boys in Tallahassee, Florida, which it seems like it's always a close game down there at home. They beat them 80-78. Man, when Florida State was up and RJ Barrett misses that free throw at the end, I'm like, we got this. But then it's like, oh, it's out on us. That's not good. And then next thing you know, we come out like the lost boys, blind leading the blind, and leave Cam Reddish open. Yep. And you cannot do that to a pure 3-point shooter. He's just incredible. And we talked about this earlier in the year. He is possibly top 3 in the NBA draft. And when you leave somebody that wide open, it's like throwing the basketball in the ocean. He's going to drill it. I knew when he was open, you deserve to lose one, but after that breakdown, but when you leave a pure 3-point shooter like that wide open, he's going to make it, 99% of the time.
Oh, yeah. Cam Reddish has struggled a lot over the last several weeks, man, not really playing up to par, missing a lot of shots that he should be knocking down. But when Duke needed him to step up, he did, man. Zion Williamson goes down in the first half with about 2 minutes left to go in the first half. He gets poked in the eye, and he doesn't return there in the second half. Found out after the game that he was experiencing a little bit of double vision, but he should be ready to play coming into this week. So you needed Cam to really step up, and him and RJ Barrett, really both of those guys stepped up, man. Duke could not for the life of them stop the lob inside. Right. I have absolutely no idea what was happening there, man. But Florida State would throw the ball up in the air, man, and every single time they'd come down and they would dunk it. They dunked it like 10 or 11 times right there on top of Duke's head, man. It was ridiculous. But all of a sudden we get down to the final minutes, the final seconds of this game. Duke's down by 2 with 15 seconds left, and RJ Barrett drives to the hole, gets fouled. goes and makes the first one, misses the second one. They initially call it out on Duke, but they go back to the replay, as you just mentioned a few moments ago, and found out that it does go off of a Florida State player. There is literally like 3 seconds left to go on the clock. The play was supposed to go to Barrett. They double-team Barrett, but leave Cam Reddish wide open. Drains the three with 0.8 seconds left to go in the game. Barrett finishes with 32 points. Reddish finishes with 23 points. Zion, who only played one half, finishes with 11 points and 8 rebounds. So, put that, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State was just completely dominating underneath, right? And so they were feeding the rock to Cabangel and Kofor, and they were putting it in. And they were scoring points that way, and going away from that towards the end of that game just super frustrated me, right?
Yep.
And so because we kind of went away from what was working, and that's a typical Florida State thing that we tend to do. But we match up perfect with the Duke team. I knew it was going to be a close game, and like it always is, it's typically one of those. We have athletes. We're good in transition. We're very complimentary of what, similar talent. Obviously, you have the top 3 players in the nation on your team, but at the end of the day, we have athletes that can run teams out of the door too. But at the end of the day, we don't have those solid players that we can really rely on. We don't have R.J. Barrett on our team, right? And I'm not saying the talent level, but we just don't have that somebody we can look to and really count on. Because Kofor, before this game, has been, he's coming off an injury.
Yep, still coming back.
He's coming back, still kind of getting in the rhythm, and he's our senior. He's our senior leadership, and he had a huge game and stepped up and was big for us.
Sure.
And that's what we've needed all year. But like Terrence Mann just disappearing, and then that defensive blunder at the end where it looked like Terrence Mann was responsible for guarding Reddish, and it just completely everybody is underneath the goal, and then not even make an attempt, even though they see the guy, he's about to shoot a 3. Somebody just jumped, just randomly. You don't even have to be close because nobody was in like 100 feet of them. Yep. Really like 10 feet, 15, whatever it was. They couldn't do anything, but at least just jump up and throw your hand, scream, do something. They just all sat there in disbelief while he shot the 3. Yep. And I knew when it left when he caught it, he was going to catch and shoot and drain it, and that's exactly what he did. All she wrote. Good game, Duke. Way to come through in the clutch, because Florida State had you on the ropes there for a little while.
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, and it would not have surprised me had Florida State won this game, because you're right, man. They always play Duke tough down there, and you're right. That is a good matchup there, and it's a good win for Duke, because it's another way they got to figure out how to win a game.
Yeah, but we also talked about this offline. This is not a bad loss for Florida State.
No,
now they need a win tonight against Pittsburgh, but when you look at it, their 3 losses on the season. You have Virginia, top 5. Duke, top 5, which was number 1. Obviously, wins, not going to fall off of the top spot. But then we lose to Villanova, which is a good squad. That's at 12-4. So right now, even though Florida State's 13-3, they don't have a bad loss on the record. So
I still
feel comfortable where they're at, and they can still have a great year. And again, they showed though they can compete with the Dukes in the nation, right? And of the basketball world. And so that was encouraging to me. But at the end of the day, I don't know if they can finish against the Dukes of the and the Kansases when it comes down to it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is.
We'll see how it goes.
Let's transition. This game right here, I had to keep rubbing my eyes to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. This Louisville Cardinals team straight runs North Carolina out of the gym. They beat them 83-62, and I don't care what you say, Louisville was balling in this game.
Oh, no doubt, man. They hand UNC their worst home loss under head coach Roy Williams that they've ever had. This right here was North Carolina's home ACC opener right here. So you expected them to come out and play better. Man, they didn't. Dwayne Sutton added, he throws in 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. They shoot as a team 52% from the field and hit 11 three-pointers in the game. They out-rebound UNC 40-31, which you never see. And UNC only had 4 fast break points in this game, which is something that's unheard of. UNC is always running up and down the court, and it didn't happen in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly, like, when I look at that, I still am in disbelief, right?
Yeah.
And Louisville came ready, they came prepared, and it shows that this North Carolina, even though they have the talent on their team, I just don't know if they're going to be ready to compete at the end of the year. I mean, I got it. There's plenty of time for them to figure out. They got playmakers, and they could beat anybody out there, but they can also lose to anybody, and that showed.
Well, we're going to have. I'm hearing a lot of conversations about effort from Carolina players, and so we're going to see how that transitions as it relates to the rest of this season.
Yeah, well, I agree because I mean, if your effort's not there, you have the talent, but again, you have to put forth the effort. Even man, when you can still in the college game, you fall behind by a big margin, you could still scratch and crawl your way back into these games. The momentum that you can gain by just effort, pure effort, you can still make it happen. Sure. But again, I know it has to be discouraging when you fall behind by a big margin. But man, if you quit by any means, this is the same way we talked about with the Florida State football team. You know, in some of these games where effort was put into question, they didn't rebound too good. Hopefully, North Carolina could rebound a little bit better.
Agreed.
Let's talk about Ole Miss again.
Yeah,
another team that continues to get some impressive wins and moves to 13-2. They defeat number 14 Mississippi State 81-77. So, dude, they continue to impress me. They continue to just rewrite what happened last year. Obviously, what happened last year. But again, when you said they're were predicted to finish the bottom of the barrel, and they're coming out and beating ranked teams and beating some of these teams and getting some good quality wins and moving to 13-2. We didn't just begin the season. This is actually a team that seems like they're playing some good ball together.
They are, man. It's their second straight win over a top 15 team. This week, Blake Henson has 26 points, including a couple of huge three-pointers for Ole Miss. And this guy's a freshman, man. You got to watch this kid play, man. He is something special, guys. This is 10th straight win for Ole Miss, and man, they're doing big things right now. And Mississippi State's heading in the opposite direction. Yeah,
mad respect. Ole Miss, you get a shout out of the week. You're looking good, guys.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Iowa, defeating another team that just seems like they're struggling. The Buckeyes again. They lose 72-62. So Iowa Hawkeyes defeat the Buckeyes 72-62, and it seems like Ohio State's backpedaling quickly.
They are, man. They commit 21 turnovers in this game. Caleb Wesson only has 2 points for Ohio State. C.J. Jackson, who's the second leading scorer on the team, finishes with only 10 points as well. So, man, they're not heading in the right direction, man. This is their third straight loss for this team, and so, man, they've got to turn the tide quick if they're going to figure out how to get something going so they can make a run here towards the end of the season.
Yeah, Kansas State comes out with a big win. They beat Iowa State, who again struggled this week, 58-57. I mean, again, it's they have two very close losses, but at the end of the day, man, Iowa State doesn't get the job done.
Iowa State goes cold in the final 2 minutes and 42 seconds of this game. Kansas State closes the game on a 12-2 run, including Barry Brown hits a layup with 4 seconds left to give Kansas State the win. So, man, Iowa State's headed in the wrong direction.
Yep, no doubt. So let's look at number 23 Oklahoma. After their loss earlier in the week, they get a win against 25 TCU, which this is their second loss of the week, right?
Yep.
And so they win 76-74. So Oklahoma beats the Horned Frogs 76-74 in this game, and that's that helps Oklahoma rebound, but it doesn't help TCU rebound from earlier in the week.
Nope. Christian Doolittle, he hits a runner with less than 3 seconds left to give the Sooners the win, and he finishes the game with 24 points and 10 rebounds.
And then another team we talked about earlier that we were giving them some mad props. They lose another game to DePaul. DePaul defeats number 24 St. John's, which they were number 24 at the time, 79-71, and DePaul gets a huge quality win in this game.
Hey, man, St. John's was missing star guard Shamor Pons as he sat out this game with a lower back strain, and, man, did St. John's miss him. They didn't seem to have a whole lot going on there. They go 5 of 17 from beyond the three-point range. They need that three-point shot to fall to win, to even beat a team like DePaul, who seemed like, man, everything they threw up was falling through the hoop.
So after this game, we had rankings come out today, the top 25, so the top 10 remains unchanged. And your boys still sitting at the perch, still sitting at number 1.
Looking good.
And looking good, but the team that's been really impressive to me too is still the second-ranked unbeaten Michigan team. They take some first-place votes away from Duke, and then you got third-ranked Tennessee, just impressive. They had 13, and then Virginia, another team that's looking good, and the only other unbeaten team had the remaining 6 votes. So you wrap up the top 5 with Gonzaga. So I mean, after that, what are your impressions?
I tell you what, man. Sitting there at 5, Virginia is. I mean, Virginia's tough. I mean, you just gotta. It's not pretty to watch. It's not enjoyable to watch. But I mean, watching Virginia play, man, they are They are a tough, different style, tough team to play. And so, I mean, Michigan's obviously looking good. Watching some of these teams begin to move up there into the rankings and beginning to make their way. Marquette, number 12, Kentucky, they come in there joining number 15, Marquette, as the week's biggest climbers by each of those rising 6 spots this week. Buffalo is at 16, and number 20, Oklahoma, which lost to Texas Tech this week, each rise 3 spots as well. But you remember, even though Oklahoma lost to Texas Tech, they also beat TCU there at the end of the week as well. So we're seeing some good stuff here. Even though you got some teams that were falling, number 13, North Carolina fell 1 after winning on the road against the Wolfpack. But then following that loss against Louisville. So I mean, you got some different stuff that's happening there. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen there with this Ole Miss team. I'm loving watching them play and watching them climb up the rankings as well, starting to get a little bit more respect, starting to get a little bit more love. But we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to my boys moving up 2 spots despite the loss.
Despite the loss.
I mean, that shows how impressive that they made on the voters when they go in there. I mean, obviously they're playing at home, always a tough out, but at the end of the day, man, this Florida State squad is athletic. They got ballers, they got players, but we need to find that. It doesn't need to be a player that steps up by committee type thing. Who is it going to be this game? There's nobody that we can have that consistent and reliable person. Like Duke, they're going to have Zion stepping up. Or they're going to have Barrett this game. And you have the 3 core, Cam Reddish, and you have your point guard. I mean, you have those 4 guys you can rely on, and obviously any one of those can have a game. But you typically are going to get the Barrett and your boy Zion that are going to be playing solid basketball, right? And so those are 2 individuals you could count on. And so they flip-flop, it seems like, who has the better game. And then when you're not getting your eye poked out and having double blurred vision, obviously that played an effect in him only getting 11 points. But he still had a solid first half, 11 points, 8 rebounds in that game. But, man, I just wanted to give out a shout-out to my team because I don't get to talk about them too much. But
absolutely, they deserve it.
I was very impressed that they actually moved up. So let's talk about the upcoming games, man, and some of the games we got coming up. I mean, again, this week is going to be a big week. We got some big games tonight. We got a big matchup, a top 10 matchup on Tuesday. Yep. We got an even bigger matchup if these teams could stay in their current positions, because I know Duke has a game tonight. I think Virginia has a game coming up this week too.
Yep.
But Saturday, man, we got 2 big matchups. We got number 1 Duke and number 4 Virginia, and then facing off. And then we got number 12 Kentucky and number 14 Auburn. These matchups, and when you look tomorrow, Virginia Tech, I mean, ridiculous games coming up, and some definitely, if you watch college basketball at all, you got to tune into these games because this is where it's at.
Virginia's got a big week here at home against Virginia Tech on Tuesday night, and then traveling on the road, handed down to Durham to go against the Cameron Crazies and the Duke Blue Devils. A 4-versus-1 matchup. That's huge. Interesting to watch that Kentucky-Auburn game as well, to see how Auburn responds and rebounds after losing a game last week. But then also Kentucky's on a little bit of a run here, making their way back towards the top 10 in the polls.
Yeah, and you're looking at the Kentucky. We're like, we haven't been talking about them much, but man, they're starting to look good. It looks like they're coming into
some stuff together.
Yeah, starting to put some stuff together, starting to make a run. And if you're not careful, Auburn, you might see yourself sitting outside the top 25 after a game or two if you continue to play and slip up from here and there. But again, Auburn is a talented team, and we've seen that.
True
but
story.
When you got a team in Kentucky that's looking good and seeming like they found their way, man, you just never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Loving it.
Brother, that is it for episode 18. We finally got it in. Guys, again, I'm sorry that we couldn't get the initial episode in, but the bonus episode will be released where Greg talks week 9. I know it will be a little outdated, but for the sports lovers, it's always good to tune in to stuff that you didn't hear originally. And so, guys, thank you. Thank you, brother, for jumping on, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. It's good to get back into the rhythm of it. Hope you guys have a great week, and can't wait to see it next time.
No doubt. Guys, thank you so much for listening to episode 18 of the College Sports Hour. Make sure to check out and subscribe to the College Sports Hour. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Radio Republic, TuneIn Radio, heroesmediagroup.com, and collegesportshour.com. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook, guys. We have a couple of cool things coming out in the future. We just redesigned the College Sports Hour logo. We also, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be on a different platform for our website. We're teaming up with an undisclosed, organization for that. We will still be getting our podcast will still be hosted by Heroes Media Group. But at the end of the day, we wanted to try to make the best decision for our podcast moving forward, and we'll have hopefully in the next month we will have our new website up and running.
Yeah.
Our articles going forward, what we'll do is instead of publishing them on our website specifically, we're going to help Heroes Media Group out. So any articles that we write, we will start publishing to heroesmediagroup.com to try to lift them up with some of the articles they're trying to generate and push out. But guys, I wanted to give a special shout out to our family and friends, to include all our listeners, followers, and subscribers. Thanks for continuing to support what we do. Don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of the College Sports Hour.